Good afternoon, boys and girls. Today we will be talking about the life cycle of animals. So I want you to all think about your own personal favorite animal. But before we do that, I want you to think about what animals are in general. And at this point, I would let the students speak and tell me what they think animals are based on different characteristics. And now, students, I want you to think about your personal favorite animal. It could be a cat or a dog, or it could even be a zoo animal like zebras or an elephant, anything. And at this point, I'd let them talk about their personal favorite animal too. Now, I want you to think about those different types of animals, but how they go throughout their life. Now, whenever do you have any brothers or sisters? I think I would probably ask that because it would allow them to see the older or younger stages of life. So I would let them speak at this point. Tell me about their brothers or sisters. So now we're going to relate that life cycle to animals. So let's say we have this small kitten here. We're going to talk about how it will progress through life based on the different steps that we will go through. So the different steps to the life cycle, we have birth, which if any of you have ever seen a little baby, that is the birth stage of life. So back from this page, you see the little kitten or the little puppy, that is the birth stage. And from then, they will start aging. Now, how old are you guys? And at this point, I'd let them talk about their age. Well, from birth to adult, there are stages in between, but we're just going to highlight these from birth to adult. We're not going to go too in detail. So whenever you're growing up, you are aging because your age is changing. You are getting older. So now, since we are at the adult stage, whichever animal, or if you're thinking about yourself, that animal is going to look different. There are going to be different physical characteristics. Now, from adult to the reproduction stage, they're still aging at this point because you're always aging. And at the reproduction stage, they will find a mate, the same animal, but a different gender, so boy and a girl, and they will have more little babies. So then the cycle will start over at the birth stage, go to adult, and then reproduction again. Now, after they have the children, aging is still occurring to where they get to the older adult stage. Now, I want you to think about your grandma or grandpa and think about how they may look different from your parents. There are different physical characteristics, and at this point, I would let them talk about that. And after the older adult stage, aging is still happening. So just keep in mind that throughout life, we're still aging no matter what. And then you get to the death stage, which is where the animal dies. So we're going to just remember this circle. We will come back to it later so that you'll be able to place animals based on their different stages. So let's count how many stages there are. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first one being birth, second adult, third reproduction, fourth older adult, and then the fifth one is death. So then we're going to go on and I'm going to do an example for you. So we're going to take the cat, for example. This is the same picture you saw at the very beginning with the little baby kitten. Now, going back to this, we see that birth is right here. So we're going to think about which picture would go along with the birth stage. So which one of these pictures looks the youngest? And then I would see who would like to answer. So it's this one. So we're going to place it up here near where we had the birth. And I would continue to ask them questions here and there just to see if they can identify where these animals would go. So now which one looks like it's probably an adult? But remember, we're not talking about older adult, we're just talking about adults. And then I'd let them answer, and it's this one. So we would put that right here. And then we're going to think about the reproduction stage. And I would try to remind them about what reproduction really means. So which one of these is the kitten having little babies? And I would let them see that this is the one. We put it here. And now this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to have you guys tell me different physical characteristics between this cat and this one. It may be a little hard to tell. And then I'd let them answer just to see where they're at. And I would help them through that. This one does look a little bit more gray, and its eyes look a little bit more droopy than this one. So that would make this one the older adult. So we put it right there. And then finally, I would ask what they think about when thinking about death. So this one is like a little graveyard picture. So that would be when the cat has died. Now, boys and girls, we're going to talk about another animal. I want you to discuss or think to yourself about these different pictures. They're all kind of scattered around, and I want you to look at the physical characteristics. I'm going to click back on this page just so that you can remember again that there's the birth stage, which is the baby stage, adult, which is where they're a little older, reproduction, which is where they're having babies, older adult is where you can see the physical characteristics of them aging through this whole process. And then finally, death. So I want you to think about where each of these pictures would go on this circle based on what we had learned before. And then at this point, I would allow them to kind of think through it, work in small groups, and then have a few students come up and drag them to the correct place. Now I'm going to split you up into 3 groups, and each group is going to have a different animal to think about. And I'll just be walking around during this point, and if you need my help, just let me know. So group 1, and at this point I would just divide them based on how many students I have. Group 1, you'll have a bear. Group 2, you'll have an elephant. In group 3, you will have a giraffe. I want you to think about the different stages of life for each of these animals based on which group you're in. And at each of their tables, I will have little clips of the different stages of the life and have construction paper for them to be able to glue those pictures based on the life cycle in which stage they would be in. And then after they come to the conclusion, I'll have them come up to the board, and I will have other slides prepared for them to drag each of their pictures into the life cycle. So now I want you to think about your own personal favorite animal that we talked about at the very beginning. It could be a cat, could be a dog, any of them. And I want you to draw that for me right now. And I want you to think about which stage of life you would be drawing it in. Would it be the baby stage, adult? Whichever stage it may be, I want you to just draw it, and I want you to visualize how the animal would age through that process. And I want you to also relate that back to all the other animals we have learned about today and how they age through birth, adult, reproduction, older adult, and death. Now, whenever you go home today, I want you to think about what we have talked about today with all the different animals, cats, dogs, bears, giraffes, elephants, any of them. I want you to just think about all of those animals. And on your way home, I want you to also look for other animals that you may come in contact with. It could be your pets. You could have a dog or a cat or a fish. You could be on your way home, see a bird or squirrels, anything. And I want you to look at them and see if you can figure out which order they would be placed in. Now, if you don't have any animals, you can look at some cartoons. You can just watch TV and look at different animals and see how they would go in that cycle. And whenever we come back to class tomorrow, we will talk more about that and We will also go more in depth with each of the specific stages so that you will get a better grasp on what each stage means and how it relates to the animal.